Hey there, thanks for tuning into this one cool thing video on blogging and Blogger. I never would have thought that I would be using a blog in school until I went to a conference and I went to a session on a teacher in an elementary class talking about how blogging had totally transformed her class. It really kind of opened my eyes to all the different things we could do, and I immediately came back thinking how I could plug it in. It was literally a one cool thing that transformed my class. So I want to share a little bit about what blogging can look like, how I used it in my class, and maybe that'll spur some ideas of how you could use it in your application. So Blogger was bought by Google some years ago, and so by using Blogger as opposed to any other blogging service, you're kind of staying within the same Google suite. And for our students, they already have Google accounts. It's very simple to create a blog. Once you've gone into the Blogger, you can create a new blog. So you just simply go new blog. You basically will come up with a title and a URL, an address. Typically, students can come up with something creative. They can pick a theme, and then once they've done that, they essentially now have a blog, and they can then start doing a post. So to create a post, they'll be in here. I could talk a little bit about settings and how to customize the settings later, but to create a new post, they would just simply go to new post, and it really looks a lot like a Google Doc. It's got a lot of the same formatting. They can insert pictures and embed links and even upload videos or link to YouTube videos. As they start working on it, if they want to see what it looks like, they can go to preview and see a model of it. And generally it's pretty straightforward. When they're ready to publish their post, they hit publish, and then they would go to the actual URL of their blog. Now, when I first started thinking about using Blogger, I was really still kind of intimidated, and I thought, okay, if I'm going to have my students do this, I'm going to do it as well. So I created a blog where I was talking about this project called 20 Time that I was doing in my class. And over time, I was an evolution major, so I think a lot about evolution. I really thought about my evolving education, and that's kind of what my blog turned into. You can see I haven't posted to it in a couple years. But here's what it would look like after a blog post was published, right? So you would see the URL. Here's my URL of my blog, oriblog.blogspot. If I click on the title, now I can see the URL. This is the post title. So here is the URL for literally this blog post, right? So if I was having a student write a blog post, they would publish their blog post, and then they would go directly up to this URL, and this is what they would submit to me. This is what they would turn in. So let me talk a little bit about the benefits of blogging and what this would look like, what it did look like in my class. So I just wrote out some of the basics of blogging and some of the benefits. The idea of a blog is that you're posting it online. When you're publishing online, you need to be aware of digital citizenship, things like copyright. Are you using copyright-free images? You can teach them about that. You teach them about what goes on the internet stays on the internet. If they're citing and giving credit where credit is due, they need to make sure they're citing that properly. I had them use a tool called EasyBib. They have the ability to share multiple forms of media, either their creation or others. In school, students are often writing to us as the teacher, but a blog allows a student to speak to a broader audience beyond the school, and so it's a real authenticity to their work. They can really start to find their voice and think about who and what they're writing about. It is an e-portfolio, so it becomes this wonderful documentation of their work throughout the course of the year. You can see a substantial amount of growth. And when I have students come back and ask me to write letters of rec, I go back to their blog when they were a freshman or a junior or senior in my an anatomy class, and I read through it, and it helps refresh my memory of what they were like as a student. It can significantly cut down on your paper and your paper grading, and I can show you what that can look like. You can have students read each other's blogs. They have the ability to comment directly on the blogs, Or if you're using Canvas or another LMS, you can use the peer review process. Also, blogs can be co-authored, so they can work in partners or in groups, and each one can either contribute individually to a blog. This is great if they're working on a project maybe throughout the year. Blogs don't always have to be public, by the way. I encourage students to make their blogs public because it really teaches them the 21st centuries skills, but you can make them private where only certain people can view it. So lots of different applications. My single favorite application of blogging was the unit reflections. So if I were to recommend you do even just one thing in blogging, I would say unit reflections. At the end of every unit, I had students write a recap of what they learned. So it really forced them to synthesize all the different sources of information they had learned into one cohesive reflection. And then I always had them reflect on their growth. I always asked, are you a better student today than you were yesterday? How do you know? What things have you grown about? And you can really see a lot of personal growth when you do that. There are all sorts of other applications. I did a lot of lab reports that way. You can have them do essays, current events, independent projects. I did 20 time, journaling, publishing videos or other multimedia that they've produced, talking about maybe what they've done in service learning. Obviously, there's privacy stuff. You don't want them to be talking too much about their personal lives or giving personal information. And that goes back to those 21st century skills about really thinking about what you're putting on the internet and what's the benefit. I have well, it's not going to load. I do have a set of instructions about how to set up the blog. So if you want to get that from me, reach out to me and I can share that with you. So I want to show you what this can look like. So here's an example of my biology class in Canvas. I've got all my units organized. So here's unit 7. You know, I've got all these things. The big thing in that particular unit was students were working in groups to make this conservation biologist project. They actually made a vodcast using Screencastify. And, you know, they're learning all this content along the way, doing these different projects. And then at the end, they've turned in that project, and I have them write a unit reflection. So here's what that can look like. So this is kind of a generic description. I have this in almost every unit reflection, so feel free to steal this. Tell them what to title it. And each blog post, each reflection throughout the year, I kind of expect more and more out of them. So I challenge them to write more. I challenge them as the year goes on to include more photos or videos to enhance their blog post. So the guidelines are to, you know, synthesize and describe what they learned, not just rattle off what they learned. I ask them to write any questions that they have, what's still unanswered. I have them, again, reflect. And one of the things I have them reflect on, so one of the things I have them do is, in this particular reflection, is to have them do a self-assessment on how they did working as a group. So group work in particular can be rather difficult, and I talk to them at the end of the project about how to be assertive and deal with different conflict styles. So here there's a little self-assessment, think about their conflict style, and a little video on how to be confident. So you can build in these personal growth aspects into the unit reflection. So in my assignment in Canvas, when I set it up, I go to edit, I've set the due date for it, and what I do, here's all my descriptors of it, I've assigned the points, and now to submit it, they're going to do a website URL. So remember how I showed when I clicked on the title of my blog and I put it right there? That URL right there is what they would submit, and that's what I would see. So from the student perspective, they're going to come, they go down to their assignment, Unit 7 reflection. Oh, it left the student view. But what they will see up in the corner is a little button that says Submit Assignment, and then they have the ability to paste that URL in, and then they can turn in their assignment. Now, as the teacher, what I get to see now, I can go to SpeedGrader, and now I can see their submission. So I can see So I'll see the link. I can open this into a new tab, or I can click directly on it. And here we are. I can see the student's reflection. I can read it. This is great. They included a picture from a beach cleanup they did. Here they included the slides presentation from their project. In this particular one, I had asked students to also link to the YouTube video that they produced. Looks like these students didn't quite do that. Maybe it was a tech-related issue. I can then comment on here. If I have a rubric, I can use the rubric to grade. I also have the ability to assign peer reviews. There's just a lot of different things you can do. So here now I have a really high-level project that they're working on, but I don't have to collect it. I can see it electronically, grade it electronically, and if I go to this student's blog, here's the most recent post. I can go back and you can see we did a dissection video. I had the student write letters to next year's students. I can go back in time and really see this student's growth over the course of the year. This is really something that students became incredibly proud of. And you can see this student, he spent a lot of time working on his blog, and the quality of his work is really, really high. So blogging has a lot of really great applications. I'd really encourage you to explore the potential and figure out how it could work to your application. If you have further questions, please reach out. I can break it down how you can go into some of the details of it. But I hope this is one cool thing that you'll maybe consider. And I hope this was valuable. Thanks for watching.